What's up? Welcome to Journey in the Self. This is Brother Sarah. Happy New Year. Happy 2022. Or whatever it actually is, whatever year it actually is. So I know that the Julian calendar isn't particularly accurate, nor is any calendar for that matter, in terms of identifying what year it is, because the earth is a million years old, and humanity and even black people have walked the earth for hundreds of thousands of years. So none of the year designations are accurate in my opinion. But I digress. Happy New Year nonetheless. I know many of us are happy to have 2021 go away, and many of us this week are in the process of making New Year's resolutions, identifying goals that we want to achieve for this new year. So, I decided that I would do a show to assist those who are going about the business of identifying their goals and resolutions, and also providing some advice and counsel on how to carry those things out. Many people have identified resolutions in the past, including myself at times, where we identify, write down the resolutions, and maybe a month or a few weeks later, we've broken them. So we want to break that pattern, and so we'll talk about some of those things. And it's also going to be important that we realize that part of the process of being able to activate and engage in the new resolutions is a journey in and of itself, because we're setting a new pattern. We're going about the process of creating new habits for ourselves. And that's not as easy as it sounds. It can be done, but it takes effort. It takes effort to break old habits. It takes effort to create new habits. So it's important that we exercise some patience with ourselves, that we also establish a strong will, and that we be persistent and be able to forgive ourselves. And so those are consistent principles that we need to be mindful of going forward as we endeavor to chart out a new course for ourselves. Now, unlike more of the recent shows, I will skip the opportunity to update us on current events, because I don't want to start the new year out on a bummer. We'll do that. We'll do that next time. So we want to focus on the things that we want, and not the things that we don't want. I was talking to someone, and the conversation was about fear. And we've talked about this before, about how the media is designed to keep us in a constant state of fear, because when we're in a state of fear, we are much more prone to manipulation. So, as George Clinton says, mind your wants because someone wants your mind. So it's important that we, be mindful and be in control of our minds. So before we get started, I want to just go ahead and read something that I posted on New Year's, and then we'll go about the discussion. So on New Year's Day, I posted, "Happy New Year to all. A clean slate. The past is in the past. There let it stay. Take only the lessons learned forward and discard the rest. Define our destinies. Look forward with excitement and take the action now to crest an awesome 2022. Understand that is the focused energy of the thoughts that we bring into our consciousness, the words that we speak, and the actions that we take now that will define our future. Let us take upon us the opportunity to consciously create that which we wish to experience for ourselves. Enjoy the journey." Now, I had written down a few notes of things that I wanted to cover, but before I do that, intuition's telling me to just go over what I wrote there. So I said, "A clean slate, the past is in the past, there let it stay." So the first thing I want to say there is that the past has only really one purpose for us, and that's why I said, there let it stay. So before we go about charting the new course, defining our objectives for the new year, setting out our resolutions that we want to achieve, it's first necessary and advisable to review the past. The purpose of the review is basically to look at it from the perspective of how did we do? Did we achieve everything that we set out to do? And if we did not, to review to gain an understanding of why we did not. So it's like reviewing like a coach will review the game film from the most recent or past games to identify the mistakes that we made during those games so that we can identify what it is that we need to correct and then revise our plan accordingly. So it's important to go ahead and do a review of the past year because, I'm sure many of us have, had identified some resolutions of things that we wanted to achieve. And then when we go back and review and evaluate the extent to which we achieve those things, we'll find that there's some things, that we didn't do. Now, again, the purpose of it is just to review and identify, where we didn't achieve those things, determine why, what tripped us up, so that we can know the things to avoid to help us plan what we want to do in the future. Okay, so we'll know some steps that led us in the wrong direction. So we'll know to avoid those steps. The things that distracted us. Where did we go wrong? It's important to note that the objective is not to go back and look at those things and then feel bad or wallow in self-pity over it. It's just to learn from it and then carry forward the lesson in our plan for the new year. Okay, and so once we've been able to attain the lesson by learning where we went wrong and how to avoid repeating that, then we can discard the past. It has no use for us. And that's why I said, there, let it stay. And I said, take only the lessons learned forward and discard the rest. Okay, and so after having gone through the review of the prior year, identifying the pitfalls that we faced that derailed us or were basically self-imposed obstacles, or even obstacles that we faced, and how we dealt with those things. We can chart a new course and figure out how to better navigate the obstacles. Where do we fall down? So then we can, from that point, after having done that, then we can identify what it is that we want to do, being mindful of the things that we need to avoid going forward. So it's important, and here's some things that again I wrote in the post. Understand that is the focus energy of the thoughts that we bring into our consciousness, the words that we speak, and the actions that we take now that will define our future. So those bring forth certain principles that apply to creation. So it's important for us to be mindful of the fact that everything in the universe is vibration. And only the thing that distinguishes that which exists in the universe is the rate of vibration. Everything vibrates, whether it's solid or whether it's light. Things that are solid vibrate at a very low rate. Light obviously vibrates at a very high rate. Thoughts are vibrations. Sounds are vibration. The universe was created by the vibration of thought and the vibration of sound. The Creator emanated those thoughts and sounds to create the universe. We are microcosms of the Creator. Some of you may use the term God. We are microcosms of God, which means to say that we are basically miniature gods. We have all of the same attributes as God. We don't necessarily actualize all of that potential, but it is within us. Nonetheless, we do create with the thoughts, words, and actions that we engage in, because they all put forth energy into the universe. So we're either creating consciously or we're creating unconsciously. To this point, however, the problem is that many of us have been creating unconsciously. And so to the extent that we wish to make changes, is that we were not satisfied or are not satisfied with what we've created in our lives up to this point. But I want to make it clear that we have created it. So it's important for us to take responsibility, again, not to feel bad or wallow in self-pity over it, but to take ownership of it, but also realize that just as we created what we are currently experiencing, we can create something else by focusing our energy, focusing our will, focusing our emotion, focusing what we think, and focusing what we speak. And again, that is a process. It's not something that we're just going to do overnight. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes us to have compassion for ourselves, because there are times that we're going to slip, but over the course of time we will develop an expanded level of awareness. Again, that's why I continually emphasize the importance of meditation, because meditation helps us to be able to be in more awareness, because it forces us to be in observation of our mind, which is one of the principal tools of creation. And as I bring up the mind, it's important to realize that the mind should be put in its proper place. I was just talking to one of my teachers over the weekend, and I made the observation that if we're not careful, the mind can take us over and control us. But we have to point out to the mind and remind the mind that the mind works for us. We don't work for our mind. Okay? And so there's some reprogramming that we have to do with ourselves. You know, some people feel as though we have to follow the whims of our minds, and that's not what we're supposed to do. In fact, following the whims of our minds was what have gotten us to the situation that we're trying to change right now. Because by not being in control of our mind, we have unconsciously created the reality that we're trying to change right now. Similarly, it's important for us to be mindful of that which we speak and be much more deliberate and conscious of what we speak. And even not just what we're speaking to others, but what we're speaking to ourselves, the conversations that we hold with ourselves. So it's important that in the self-talk that we engage with ourselves, that we're speaking positively, that we're not engaging in negative self-talk. And that when we catch ourselves, that with awareness, expanding our awareness, that we catch ourselves when we begin engaging in negative self-talk. So one practice that's important is to, when we catch ourselves engaging in some negative self-talk, to stop it and even just verbally say, cancel. I nullify that thought. I take that back. Because we don't want to, we're programming ourselves. So it's either one of two things. We're either programming ourselves or we're being programmed. There's nothing in between. So part of our objective in plotting a new course for the new year is the process of reprogramming ourselves and deprogramming ourselves. And that's what takes the time and effort. So I was talking to someone who I was giving counseling to last week, and I was pointing out to them that we have developed patterns in our minds, in our consciousness, in our DNA, neural patterns that we've developed, which are akin to, imagine driving on a dirt road over a continuous period of time. We've driven over that dirt road over and over and over again. So much so that after a period of time that we've driven deep grooves in the road, so deeply that when we drive on that road, we can let go of the steering wheel and the car will drive itself, because the car will be following the grooves in the road that we've created by driving the same path. And so similarly, we've engaged in continuous actions that have driven deep grooves in our neural patterns that we follow that path unconsciously. We're not aware of what we're doing. That's why I say we're unconsciously creating. So just imagine, do you, when you're driving home from work, if you drive home from work anymore, so many people are working from home these days, but when you're driving home from work, do you have to think about the route that you need to take to get there? For most people, the answer is no, unless you just move to a new place. But if you've been living in the same place for some time, you don't have to think about how you're going to get home. You can be thinking about everything but driving home, and the next thing you know that you will be home, and won't even know how you got there because your mind is absorbed in something else. It's not necessary for you to think and be conscious about where you're going. It's programmed in you. Now, when we endeavor to create a new pattern, what we face is, now going back to the dirt road, in order to get out of that pattern, what do we have to do? We have to turn the wheel and exert effort to turn the wheel because the wheel is stuck in that pattern. And so to get out of that groove, we have to exert consistent effort sufficient that the tires grab and pull ourselves out of that groove. But if we let go before we get out, it will go back into that same groove in the road, the same pattern. So our minds are the same way. In order for us to pull out of the neural patterns that we've developed over a long period of time, is going to take consistent and focused effort, just as it is to drive out of that groove in that road. And if we lapse in our awareness or consciousness, then we'll find ourselves back on that same pattern. And that will happen. And that's why I emphasize the importance of having patience, persistence, and being able to forgive ourselves. Because our lower self will, if we allow it to, beat us up and send us down a pattern, a hole of self-pity. And then we'll basically defeat ourselves. So it'll be important that, we forgive ourselves, review the tape, just like I started out the call, review what happened, how did I, lose awareness, how did I get off the path? And then just notice it. Take note of it and use that as information going forward so that we'll know what to avoid. Because we learn from what threw us off of our path. Okay. So all of our experience is useful. There are no negative experiences as long as we learn from them. So how do we start to reprogram ourselves? Okay, so first, as we go back and review, we identify things that threw us off. So we look at our lives. What were the things that prevented us from achieving what we wanted to do before? Right? What we were doing. What did we identify that we wanted to do, and what did we actually do? And that's why it's important. One thing I'll recommend is to keep a journal. So we can record what we've done and then be able to identify what we didn't do as compared to what we wanted to do. Okay, so what stopped us? Where did we go wrong? So what did we actually do with our time? And did it serve us? Did it help us to attain to our goal, or did it distract us? And if it was the latter, then consider eliminating those things that distracted us. TV can be one of those things. And so we identify the things that distracted us, that where they took away time from the things that we wanted to do. Because there's always time. There's always enough time. So it's not that there's a shortage of time. It's that we haven't prioritized our time correctly. Okay. And so we identify that which we want to do. We evaluate why we didn't do it, what came in the way, what were we spending our time doing instead, what can we eliminate, so that as we're planning our objectives for the new year, what do we need to eliminate so that we can have time to implement the things that we want to achieve in the new year. So if we want to change our circumstances, we have to change ourselves. We can't do the same things that we've always done and expect a different result. So we have to make some changes. Okay? And so, we identify the things that we need to do, new habits that we need to create for ourselves. And be persistent. And so programming, so we have to deprogram from what we were doing and make sure that we're not programming ourselves or allowing ourselves to be programmed. Right? So, one of the tools of our programming is television, media, and so forth. So it'd be advisable to regulate how much of that we're allowing into our consciousness, because we're being programmed through it. Okay. And so instead of allowing ourselves to be programmed, we can program ourselves. How can we program ourselves? We can program ourselves with what we're saying to ourselves. So we can give ourselves positive affirmations. We can create positive affirmations in just instilling in ourselves confidence, in belief. So affirmations can be such being like a personal flavor to ourselves, right? Yeah, boy, you're the best. I am the best. I'm strong. I'm powerful. I am persistent. I am focused. And notice the tone that I'm using. You don't say, I'm strong. I'm focused. I'm disciplined. You say it with emotion, because emotion is a catalyst. Emotion is like fertilizer, and you can imagine the thoughts as being seeds. So when we plant seeds, we want to put fertilizer to activate and escalate the creation process. And so we put the word seeds out there. Then we want to amplify it with emotion. See, and that's why I say it's important for us to be in control of our emotions, because emotions are the activating force, And so if we allow ourselves to get into negative thoughts, invariably we're going to end up in negative emotions. We're going to be speaking negatively, and then we're going to amplify the creation of all the things that we spoke and thought with the commensurate emotion. And that's how we've created the circumstances that we don't want. But just as we created that, we can use the very same principles. They work for the positive or the negative. So instead of allowing negative things to be created unconsciously, we can consciously create by focusing our thoughts, focusing our speech, and focusing our emotions all at once. Okay? And so we use the words of affirmation with power, with emotion. Okay? And so that's one of the things that we can do. Set up a time, maybe in the morning, as you're starting your day. Get yourself pumped up with those positive emotions. I'm strong. I'm powerful. I'm focused. I'm determined. Another positive habit is to visualize. Sit down and visualize what it is that we want to achieve. And as we visualize it, see it as if it is happening now. See ourselves experiencing it as if it were happening now. Feel the way we would feel as if it were happening right now. Emotions are the amplifier, the fertilizer. So we're focusing the thought and we're amplifying it with the emotion. With the affirmation, we're focusing our speech and amplifying it with the emotion. Okay? So those are the ingredients of creation. Again, we're doing this anyway, but we're doing it unconsciously. So the only difference in creating what we want is doing it consciously. Another way to program ourselves is to read books. And not just any books. Read books on creating. You can read spiritual books. Read books on people who we look up to and want to emulate. For example, when I was a kid, I wanted to be the best center fielder. So the best center fielder in baseball was Willie Mays. So I got a book on Willie Mays, and I did all the things that he did to practice, to learn to become a center fielder. And anybody who played with me will tell you that there was nobody better than me, and I maintain that there was nobody better than me, period. Major league or whatever. I just didn't, have the opportunity, and I didn't know what I know now. But no one plays in a better center field than me. I believe that. Yeah, so, you find, the person that you admire, you get the book on them, and emulate the things that they did. Or, you can get some books on, I always recommend spiritual books, because all these principles that are explaining to you come from spirituality. They don't come from Think and Grow Rich, although I recommend that book. But Think and Grow Rich gets them from spiritual principles. And all those people who wrote those self-improvement and books on prosperity and all those type of things, all those concepts came from spirituality. Okay, so they didn't create that stuff. That's a side note. They got it from us. I'm throwing it back to you. But I digress. So read books, listen to lectures, and I say read books. Don't get audio books unless you have you're driving and you can't read. But I strongly recommend reading. It will expand your vocabulary, and there's really a different. It programs your mind a lot differently than just hearing the book read. You can listen to lectures or spiritual discourses, and so those are some of the things that we can do to program ourselves. Okay. So then, of course, as you begin plotting out your plans, identify the things that you want to do, write them down. And writing is also energetic. So the process of writing them down, sends a vibration out into the universe as well. And then write them down and then place them somewhere that you can see them to remind yourself of them. And then again, being mindful of what prevented us from doing those things before and avoiding those things, so taking the lessons learned from the past and making sure that we don't repeat those things that prevented us from attaining to the goals that we set forth last time. Okay. And then, so we've identified what it is that we want to do, and then set up a plan for implementation. What are the things that I am going to do to make this happen? What do I need to do every day? So we talked about establishing a daily practice of affirmations, a daily practice of visualization. And I'm going to tell you a daily practice of meditation. Schedule time to do these things, and then make that a habit. Make that part of our routine. And be mindful that you will get resistance. Your lower self will resist you from doing these things. Because, as I pointed out at the outset of the show, when we're in fear, we are much more easily manipulated. But I'll extend that to say that any negative emotion renders us much more susceptible to being controlled. And so the things that we're battling for control are, of course, the external forces, but we're also going through an inner battle between our higher and our lower self. And so just as the external negative forces aspire to control us by keeping us mired in negative emotions, which is the macrocosm, if you will, the external forces represent the world ego. Within ourselves, our lower self is the personal ego that we also have to battle, that we are also battling, particularly if we embark on a spiritual path. So we will be met with heavy resistance. You will definitely be met with heavy resistance to getting up and meditating. Because when we begin meditation or any spiritual practices, that alerts the ego, the lower self, that we are in the process of regaining control over ourselves. Because up to that point, we have been allowing our lower self, our ego, to control us, using our minds, using our bodies, our senses, controlling our emotions. So we have been out of control. We haven't been in control of ourselves. We have been being controlled by our lower selves. Okay, so when we embark on the spiritual path, when we set about taking back control of our lives, we will be met with resistance from our lower self. Just as it is, particularly for people of color, quote unquote, just as it is that when we're trying to escalate ourselves to change our personal situations or change our collective situations, we will be met with resistance by the human ego as represented by those dark external forces that control the world. Everything is consistent. That which goes on within us goes on in the external environment. So the battle is the same. It's just on a different playing field. So it's important that we be mindful of what's going on. So when we wake up to meditate, and I recommend meditating between 4 and 7 in the morning, and for some, that may be a drastic change in routine. And when you wake up, say you set the goal to wake up at 5, and you've been accustomed to waking up at 8 or 7, you're going to have a voice protesting. That's coming from the ego, convincing you to sleep for another 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is never 5 minutes. So you will face resistance, and it's going to take some will. It's going to take persistence to overcome that. Now, I'll tell you, the best thing to do is to just get up and do it. Don't even allow the voice of the lower self to speak. Don't even entertain it. Just set the goal and do it. And if you succumb to it and go back to sleep or whatever, again, don't beat yourself up over it. Forgive yourself. Take note of it. The next time, I'm just going to get up. I'm not going to listen to self-talk. I'm just going to do it. Right? So you just learn. Okay? I listened to it. I went ahead and fell for it. I slept for another 5 minutes. I'm not doing that tomorrow. Okay? So just learn from it and move on. Don't wallow in self-pity or feel bad. And, because that's ego too. Ego wants to send you down the cycle of depression, get you in a cycle of beating yourself up, because then it has control over you again. Okay. So, what we're doing now is breaking old patterns and establishing new patterns. Okay. So that's why it's not just simple as just sitting down and writing down resolutions. Everybody does that, but a lot of people don't carry them out because it's much more involved than just writing it down. Writing it down is part of it, but there's more to it. So all the things that we talked about are things that we need to do in order for us to manifest the things that we want to achieve here in the new year. Okay, so we come to the end, and I hope that you found this to be beneficial to you. I know it will be beneficial to you if you do it, but if you struggle with it or you feel like you need some help, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will help you, and you will see a difference. From the advice and counsel and guidance that I give you, you will absolutely see a difference. So, if you find yourself met with challenges over that, please do reach out to me. Currently, you can reach me on my Facebook Messenger, or you can reach me by email, and my email is sa-ra@sa-ra.org. That's sa-ra@sa-ra.org. So you can either reach out to me by that email or Facebook Messenger. And I'm working on updating my website, which is sa-ra.org. It's not up yet. We expect it to be up in 3 weeks. And we will set that up so that, someone can sign up for a free initial consultation so that we can help you to achieve your goals for 2022. And then, also, I do relationship counseling services. I know there's a lot of people who are having challenges in their relationships by being forced to work at home and forced to actually have to deal with a relationship partner and actually talk to them. So, if you find yourself in that situation and need some counsel on how to improve your relationship, I can help you with that as well. So do reach out. So with that, I think I hope this. Well, no, I know that it'll be this is beneficial to you and will be beneficial to you if you use it. So use it and let me know how it's benefited you. And again, if you need help, please do reach out to me. So with that, thank you for joining. Have a happy, prosperous new year. Achieve all that you wish and desire and hope to achieve this year. Make it happen. See you next time. I'm joining myself. Hotel.